What is good, FLocers? That is my fellow lockers and aspiring lockers. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I am going to be talking about the do's of Microlocs. So if you're interested in the list that I'm about to drop here, please stick around. The first do on my list of microlocking is make sure you cover your locks. Now, that can be in different categories. Make sure you cover your locks when you go to sleep at night because lint is a thing that's gonna happen no matter what you do. So give yourself the best protection against getting a lot of lint, excessive lint in your hair by making sure that you cover your locks at night. I have a satin pillowcase on my pillow, but I also wear a bonnet at night on top of my head before putting my head down on the satin pillowcase. Now, if I'm just taking a nap in the middle of the day, a lot of times I'll forget to put my bonnet on just because I don't have time to be bothered with that. But at night, I wear my bonnet every single night because my sheets and my comforter are not made out of satin or silk. They're cotton, they're different materials that come off, and it's definitely lint. One of my blankets is blue. I'm not trying to have blue lint in my hair. So I make sure that I keep it covered up, whether you choose a bonnet, a do-rag, a scarf, a head wrap, whatever it may be, but just make sure that you're covering your locks up at night when you go to sleep. One, because of the amount of rubbing around that you do. Some people may argue that the friction is good for helping the maturation process of your locks, but in terms of keeping lint out, you're gonna wanna have your locks covered. My locks seem to be maturing just fine, and I'm, not keeping my head uncovered for the purpose of them getting roughed up and having friction. So I don't think you're gonna have any issues there. And also, make sure that you do cover your locks up when you do different activities. If you know that there's gonna be strong smells with what you're doing, whether it's cooking onions or I don't know, what else is something that has a strong smell? Chitlins. Never had chitlins before, but from what I've heard from family members, they have a really strong smell. So I would assume that just like with onions or other foods that are greasy, just like that smell gets in your clothes, it'll get in your hair and it'll stick in your hair. So nobody wants to smell chitlins as you walk around or onions in your hair. So make sure that you're covering it up when you do that. Or if you're out in the yard doing yard work, grass clippings has a strong smell that gets stuck on your clothes. I mean, when you do yard work, not just the sweat and body odor, but you have the smell of outside, that'll get on your hair too. So whether you're cutting the grass or you're cutting weeds, weed whacking, or trimming bushes, the gasoline from the machines that you're using can get trapped in your hair and they'll stay there until the next time you wash them. So unless you want to go around smelling like a motor oil that you're supposed to put in your car, I'd go ahead and make sure you wrap your hair up. The next do on my list is listen to your hair. If something isn't working for you, try something new. I think sometimes we get so focused on the list of do's and don'ts, and we take it as word and what it has to be, and we don't realize that what works for one person might not work for someone else. So let me try something different with my hair. If you are spraying water on your hair every day because you want to add moisture, but then you notice that your hair is extra dry after some time, then try not spraying your hair every day. Try going every 2 or 3 days without spraying your hair and see if that helps. Or vice versa, if you're not spraying your hair at all and your hair is super dry, try seeing if you implement some water, rose water or something into your regimen. Or oil, if you're not using oil, but you're suffering from extremely dry scalp or dry locks, maybe try some oils, but do your research and know what types of oils are good for your locks, that won't weigh your locks down too much, that won't cause buildup and things like that. But don't be stuck in such a routine that you can't veer off and try to do things that might actually improve and help to cultivate a better lock journey for yourself. My third do is try your best to stick to a retightening or a retwisting schedule. I am not one who says that it has to be exactly on the 30th day if you're going a month, or the 45th day, for 6 weeks or anything like that. But you want to try your best to stick to some type of schedule, as in like, don't go 4 weeks one time and then go 12 weeks the next time in between retightening, only because that can cause different issues. You know, obviously your hair grows at different rates throughout the year at different times, but if you've got this much new growth one time when you're doing a retightening compared to this much new growth when you do the retightening, depending on what type of rotation you're doing, it might impact the overall look of the lock, where one section of your hair is swelling more than the other, and then the other part is more compact. And so if you're looking for a more uniformed look throughout your lock and consistency, then you have to be consistent with your retightenings or retwistings. Just for that fact alone, if you're not worried about your locks looking, and I'm not talking about being cylindrical, but I'm just talking about the consistency in the size and not having, you know, some fat sections and smaller sections. And again, I'm not talking about when your lock is going through budding and things like that. That's a completely different story. You can't avoid the budding and things like that. But I'm talking about specifically having thicker sections of your locks due to waiting longer to retighten your hair or things like that. So just be conscious of that when you were trying to decide how long you're gonna go in between your reties. There are people who I've heard that go 12 weeks, you know, without retying because they're 10 years into their lock journey. So that works for them, but I don't think that you can start your Microloc journey today and expect to be able to go 12 weeks in between a retie. I don't think that that's realistic. Your hair has to mature and get to a place where it knows what to do before you go that long in between reties. So just learn your schedule, know your schedule, and do your best to try to stick to some type of schedule. My number 4 do is very cliche, but it is very true. Do try to enjoy every single step of the process of your lock journey. This is really hard when you have short hair and you're looking at these people on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and you're like, oh my gosh, they have luscious long locks and they're able to throw their hair up in these elaborate styles and do so much with their locks. And here I am, I can't even get a half ponytail, or, you know, I can't get any type of real styling that I would like to do because my hair is so short, or this or that. It's great to draw inspiration from other people's journeys, but you can't look at other people's journey and put it on yourself. You need to be in the state that you're in and enjoy it, regardless of what stage that's in. There are stages that are more frustrating than others. There are stages where you look at your hair and you may not like the way that it's looking if you are into a certain type of cultivated, manicured look, then that might be difficult for some. But I've heard so many people who go back on their lock journeys once their hair is long and they're like, man, I miss my hair when it was shorter. And I can say that for myself too. I had locks for 6 years during one of my lock journeys and my hair got really long, and I ended up cutting it, not short, but I ended up cutting off a good amount of the lock just because you do miss when it's shorter. I mean, not everybody. Some people love to have super long locks, but what I found in my journey is that the longer my hair got, the less I did with my locks. When my locks were shorter like they are now, I would do flat twist, not all the time, but I would do it sometimes. If I were going to a wedding or going to some type of event, the theater or something, I would do a quick little flat twist style or something, just so that it would change it up and, you know, be a little exciting. But once my hair got longer, it was literally throw it up or half up, half down. That's all I did with my locks. Nothing else, never tried to do any styles just because it was just easy and quick to throw it up. I don't know, that's not everyone's experience, but that was my experience. So enjoy every stage of the lock journey that you're in when you're in it, because you're never gonna be at that point again. You know, even if you grow your locks out for 5 years or 10 years and then you cut them real short again, they're not gonna be the same locks as they were when you were in the beginning of your journey, because they're not gonna be going through the maturation process like they were before. They're not gonna be budding and swelling. They're not gonna have the little curly cues on the ends like they did before. Well, unless you manipulate them and do things. But the locks that you have at the beginning of your journey are not gonna be the same locks that you have later on down the road in your journey. And so if you're so focused on what your locks are gonna be like 5, 10 years from now, and you miss out on enjoying where they are right now and, you know, maybe doing some styles if you're into that at that point, then you're gonna look back and be like, dang, I wasted time trying to get here. And now that I'm here, I kind of wish I was back there. Not fully, but you know, you go back and forth like, man, I do miss those days when my locks were shorter and I did more with them. So enjoy it while you're in it. And my final do for today is do you. Do what works for you. There are so many videos and so many articles and pictures and things like that that you can find online with other people's lock journeys, of them sharing their experience and things like that. And I will keep saying this till I'm blue in the face. Well, you won't see me being blue in the face, but regardless, I will keep saying this until the day I die because it's so true. We can all pull inspiration and have lock crushes and things like that, but nobody's journey is our journey except for our journey. And you have to do what works for you. What works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for me. There may be things that work for me that work for you, and then there's other things that work for me that don't work for you, and vice versa. So you have to take little grains of different people's perspectives and say, you know what? Your hair looks good and that works on you, but I know that I have low density hair. And so what you're doing for your hair, for your high density hair, isn't gonna work for me specifically. Or I love the way that your hair looks, but I know that you have this curl pattern because you shared it with me. And I know that my curl pattern is 4 off in the other direction from that. So the chances of me having the same type of curls at the ends of my locks, or the chances of my retwist lasting as long as yours because of our hair density and hair texture, it's just not probable for everything to match up and be the same. So do you listen to what you want to, but also take it with a grain of salt and realize that your hair is your hair. So you got to do what works for you. And don't be afraid to experiment and try new things. I think there are some people that are in the lock community that are on such a strict regimen with their locks and such a strict rule book to follow because they don't want to mess up their locks. And I understand that. Some people pay top dollar for their locks who are not DIYers. So I wouldn't want to spend that coin and then mess up my locks either. But part of the reason that we get locks, at least for a lot of people, is to free ourselves from a lot of the things that when you're the loose natural that you're tied to, or if you have a perm or whatever. So you want that freedom, and then we end up getting put back in a box because we say, oh, well, don't touch your hair too much. Don't have hand and lock syndrome or hand and hair syndrome. Don't touch your hair too much. You got to leave it alone. Don't over manipulate your hair. And I agree, you don't want to over manipulate and be pulling and tugging on your hair, but this is your crown. This is your glory. I, at least personally speaking, did not take all this time and effort to growing and manifesting my crown and putting so much time and effort and attention to getting it to look this way, to just let it sit there and not touch it. I love touching my hair. I'm constantly running my hand through my hair, and I've never had any issues in the past with that. Again, each person has a different experience and hair texture, hair density, all of that. So when you touch your hair and you run your hands through your hair, if you're having thinning and losing hair, of course, don't put your hands in your hair, but to each their own. Find what works for you, do what works for you, and be okay with experimenting a little bit and trying new things with your hair. If you stayed around to the end, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you sticking around to the end. Take a couple more seconds and hit that subscribe button as it helps me. Make sure to hit that like button because that helps me too to know what type of content you all are liking and what I should keep producing. And it also helps the algorithm to push my videos more on YouTube. So please help me to continue to grow my channel. Thank you so much for being here, for sticking through with me on my journey. And remember to be kind to each other and to spread positivity. Bye.